I'm going to introduce our first student presenter, and this is Ava Seiberlich, reading one of her poems. Come on up, Ava.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah? Good? Okay. So this is a piece I wrote about my first experience with loss, and it's called Grief. A figure cast in shadow awaits me, the nature of its face concealed. It's been waiting for this moment since the second it settled into my grandparents' house, lurking in the shadows until the reaper had finished its work. Its shroud billows in the wind, whipping my hair into my eyes, as gust after gust knocks the breath from my lungs. I have always imagined what this would be like, for it to come, and yet I never knew how paralyzing it would be. The creature beckons. It's time, it says in a voice so hoarse I can barely understand it. Down and down we trudge, the walls that were once familiar warp into a binding purgatory. Can I even turn back, or would that be worse? The creature and I reach the void that was once a bedroom. Within, the amber glow of a lamp diffuses, the only light for miles. And in this hazy state, I can make out a hospital bed. Lying there, I see him. His skin is translucent and hangs over his bones, as though draped to create a mockery of his once human form. The eyes from my memory that revealed so much now relinquish as much as a marble would. His skull has been tilted towards the ceiling, but I now know that makes little difference, for the body is already as stiff as the marble walls that will soon entomb his mortal form. The creature seems to have granted me peace. Nothing. I feel nothing. Trying to avoid getting lost in the oblivion of those glass eyes, I glance at the nightstand. The glint of a metal frame shines, and I'm swallowed. No one is safe from the creature's peril. Into its arms I am wrapped in its sick, frigid grasp. There is no light anymore. It engulfs me, my mind, my soul.
Awesome, thanks, Ava. So I could see Ava behind the podium. Of course, you guys couldn't, and her legs were shaking quite a bit, you know, and mine are too right now. You can't tell. We look calm and composed, but it's pretty scary to be up here talking to people from the microphone. So if we could just give her another round of applause for it was awesome. So I'm grateful for students for putting themselves out there and sharing with you guys. Our next presenter, brave enough to do this work, is Penelope Sage.
Can you hear me? Okay. So I wrote a poem called I See You. In the midst of a crowd, I can find your face. I see the way your eyes float around in search of mine. I see the desperate need hidden behind your pupils to find me. All this time, I've come to memorize the way your eyes talk, how they sing, but most of all, how they love. It's hidden in the softness held within the chestnut and hazel blend that swirls around your pupil. The finest detail hidden in the swirl of hazel and chestnut can't be seen anywhere but my point of view. The way they linger upon my face to every detail that outlines my features. Your eyes have become my favorite feature upon your angelic face. How they squirm impatiently to discover a place to stay, to rest upon, to locate, a place to call home. From the moment our eyes meet, connect, they remain steadily upon my irises, to my lips, to my soft chin, and to my acutely shaped nose. I sense your eyes mapping out in layers and layers of hundreds and hundreds of drawings that scale out every feature upon my face. To the moment we stand no further than 5 feet apart, you bend your neck down to me for a kiss. How each step, each awaiting moment, patient and impatient, brought us together. A place where we can call home. Thank you.
All right, thank you both for sharing your poetry with us. And our main event for today is Raych Jackson, who's going to read some poems for us. And I'm going to read her formal introduction. Before I do, I just want to say I read Ms. Jackson's poetry a few months ago, and I was really intrigued by it. It's very kind of evocative and kind of intrigues the reader. It sort of teases you to read and reread the poems. And then I watched her last period, and I was really impressed with her openness to sharing so much of her own life with us here today. And I found it very inspirational to see how passionate she is about poetry. So I'm excited to introduce Ms. Jackson to you. A former elementary school teacher, today's presenter is a poet, playwright, and performer. Her poems have gained over 2 million views on YouTube and have won her a National Underground Poetry Championship. Her debut book of poems, Even the Saints Audition, won an award for Best New Poetry Collection by a Chicagoan in 2019. Here's a copy of that if you want to look for that on Amazon. She co-created and co-hosts Big Kid Slam, a monthly poetry show in Chicago, and she has given voice not only to a character in Jackbox video games Madverse City, but also a character in the upcoming Cartoon Network animation series Batu. Please welcome the very talented Raych Jackson.
Hello. Oh, good. Hi. Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun for me and hopefully for you because I enjoy what I do. So I'm going to give like a little intro, a couple of takeaways. I'm going to read some poems, and then I'm going to have some A's for your Q's, okay? All right. So my name is Rachel, and I am 30. And when I was a little younger, I'll say early tweenish, Google became a thing. And, so we were all Googling our names, and I would literally never forget this. I typed in Raych Jackson, and Andrew Jackson, the president's wife, popped up. And then I went through this whole crisis where I was like, no one's going to know who I am. What do? I threw a Y in my name. So now, after... now I've done a couple of things, right? But now when you search RAYCH Jackson, things pop up. And so that little story it's not too far off from like my actual name and such, is talks about what I do, right? So I'm a performer, I'm an educator. I taught in Chicago Public Schools for 5 years. I taught 3rd grade for 4, and then I looped with my last class for 4th grade. And I also do social media marketing, so like it is exciting to me to figure out how to get the world to talk about something. And then I wrote a book, and this book deals with a lot of like religious trauma, a not too good childhood, but also like talking about my struggles about like growing up, just figuring out who I am, right? And I kind of want to leave you with 3 takeaways. So the first takeaway is that someone is always going to connect with your work. And so I know this is Writers Expo, but this also applies to whatever artistry you're in, right? Like artist lane you're in, if you make music, if you create clothes, if you design clothes. For me, I write. And so when I'm writing these poems, I'm like, well, not everyone's going to be a Black girl raised in the church that just really had a hard childhood. However, if someone who's raised in the church reads my book, they connect to it, right? So I kind of like really want to push that. There was this moment where I wrote this book and I felt alone. However, when the poem started slowly coming out before the book even dropped, everybody was kind of like, or not everybody, right? I won't flex. But there were a lot of different people that connected that I never would have thought of. So that's my first takeaway. My second takeaway is you gotta fight for your creativity. So I said it in a quicker way last class. If you present an idea to someone and they happen not to like it, it's logical, right, to feel defeated. But you're not gonna throw it away. And I shared this, and I don't share this often. I'm not gonna tweet it, so there's not gonna be like a digital footprint. But I'm gonna let you all know that I had to fight for this cover. And it is literally so interesting that this is the different font. I even fought about the font. So this is like not fought, right? I wasn't like, pew, pew. But I really was like, hey, I want a more engaging font. So if you see, this was like right before I went to press, how it's printed out. And then I chose this font, how it's in script. So little details really matter. I am not a designer, but I have a friend who's a designer, and like her eye is like different. Like I say it's blue, and she's like, it's actually like a little turquoise, Fighting for your creativity and fighting for what you want in the long run is really important. I think that you all are pretty dope. Like, this seems like a really great school that doesn't seem to like step on your creativity. But there might be aspects of the world that really will. So like, just make sure you hold it down and fight for it for real. Because in the long run, whenever I see my cover, like I fought for this image. I love this image so much. So whenever I see this image, I get like extremely excited. You'll understand in the long run. You're like, hey, like this right here caused me to beef with my publisher. But in the long run, the image is what gets it off the shelves. And then the last one is that rants are poems. So I'm about to read a few poems, and then we're going to Q&A it up. But when I say rants, sometimes I'll see something and I'll get really excited and I'll get really pumped up about it. And what happens is I'll write it down. And then it's kind of like jumbled intensely, right? And then it becomes a poem with edits. So I think that sometimes people approach poetry as this big wall or hurdle that they have to jump over, or you really got to get like the roses are red out there. And it's not that. If it pops in your brain, write it down is really how we got to this book. And I'll explain later that like one of my favorite pieces is I wrote in 2010 in college. So we're gonna hop right into the book because I'm very excited to just talk to y'all. Okay, so this book deals with like a lot of religious trauma, but long story short, hair is really celebrated in the religion I grew up in, right? You're not supposed to touch it, you're not supposed to process it. Like you could trim your edges, but you better not like really lean it up. You better trim them like, unless you're getting yourself a haircut, which is really not good. And so, when I was like 24, 25, I had to ask permission to cut my hair. I'm not gonna hold you. Have you all ever asked permission for something you knew you were gonna do already? That's essentially what I did. However, out of respect, I asked permission to cut my hair, and it was this thing where my mom was devastated, right? Like, my mom just immediately equates short hair to masculinity. Like, she was just like, oh my God, you're gonna be pretty, what's going on with you? And so I wrote a poem responding to her because I don't ever wanna brag, but like, flipping my invisible hair, still a baddie, okay? And this is titled, Church Girl Defends Her Haircut. I remind them Samson was weak, well before his cut, set his entire strength in fragile strands. Faith that strong is bound to leave you chopped. Got the whole world convincing you I need more. Contorted Rapunzel, eager to walk in storms now. Bald weeping willow, still a decoration. Still bite, still roar, laced with a neck roll. Ain't a lion, still a lion without his mane. Thank you. Cool. So, thank you so much. So, at this point, I'm 24, I'm bald. I go out and, the wind is blowing through my scalp. I shared this earlier, but like, I'll drop something in the shower and I don't have to like make sure that my hair doesn't get wet. If it rains, I'm strolling in the rainstorms. I'm splashing in puddles. Like, I'm living my life, bald-headed and all, right? Then came this realization, and you can't see it because I literally just dyed my hair, but I have like bald spots above each of my ears. And what this came from is my mom constantly just braiding and playing in my hair, but like ripping it out, right? And like trying to make sure my hair was done all the time. And so just like tight ponytails will pull on hair and eventually pull it out. And so I shared this in the last period, but I have been really like, processing that a lot of, well, let me speak for my parents. My parents were just trying to make it, right? Like, were they good parents? In their eyes, yes. And they were really trying to do what they thought parents would do. So my mom would like really make sure my hair was done. Like, that was her thing. My baby not gonna leave out her hair done. And then it ended up literally damaging my scalp. And when I was, on my high horse about being a bald head baddie, and the bald head baddie ended up having bald spots, I was devastated. Right? Like, there's this thing where, you're galloping on the high horse and the wind knocked me off of it. So I wrote an ode to my bald spots. And so the reason I did this is I think that, well, let me back up. An ode is a poem that celebrates something. And so I shared, ode to my cell phone because I love it, right? Ode to a cheeseburger with no onions, extra pickles, because that's like literally my favorite thing. Hate onions, please. Let's not talk about it right now, but y'all are doing a lot. Ode to the color teal. That's one of my favorite colors. And so you write these poems showing how much you love this object, this thing. And so I chose to write a love poem, essentially, to my bald spots. I think that sometimes with insecurities or things that people want you to be insecure about, right, you're ashamed of them and you just want to talk about them. And it's like this thing that no one should talk about. But at some point, we don't have to talk about it because they're right on the side of my head. So I wrote an ode to the bald spots above my ears. And I'm terrible at naming things, so the title is literally Ode to the Bald Spots Above My Ears. Very creative. That's how I do. I never asked for them, obviously. Pools of smooth skin, open spaces shining from the grease. I brush my hair quicker. My bald spots make it easier for me to slide on my glasses, but I smothered them under curtains of perms and braids, told them it was their fault that everyone picks on me at school. My poor, undeserving splotches formed by my mother's desperate fingers. Can't rip beauty out the naps. Beauty is the naps. Every crooked tooth comb that tore through the clusters is dead to me. Resilient blotches will always live on. Have more room to settle, a country pulled out of the unwanted, my fashionable traumas, glinting battle wounds I show off now, proof of all I had to be, to take, to be acceptable, tombstones set above each ear to mark where my hair was mangled and uprooted, an anthem I always hear. Thank you. I was just about to say, oops, I am so sorry. I forgot to press it. I apologize. It was supposed to be up there, but sometimes I'll just be feeling it, and I forgot to look behind me. Thank you so much to the AV team. I apologize. That was on me. I am going to read Dragon now, and it's the one with the slashes. If we could have that one up. But yeah, that was my bad. Okay, perfect. Okay, so thank you. This whole book, right, talks about, maybe I should move to the side, huh? Okay. Is that better? Because in my heart, I'm like 6'5", but I'm only 5'10", but I didn't want to block it. But again, we're talking about this book where I'm dealing with religious trauma, right? I'm dealing with, struggling being a black girl growing up in the church where they're like really strict. And then there also is, unfortunately, this aspect of like substance abuse that I was raised around. And it's one of the third takeaways that I said, right? First one was, my phone is over there, oh my gosh. Well, the third one was rants are poems. And so, does anyone watch Criminal Minds in here? Like, this is not a trick question. Okay, cool. Why is his name blocking me right now? The nerdy cute one, that is my jam, he's my jam. What's his name? Shout it out for real. Spencer Reed, that's a baddie. Did we watch for the plot or did we watch for Spencer Reed? Anyway, I was watching Criminal Minds and there's this quote that happens. And if you do not watch Criminal Minds, like they literally always start off with a quote. And it was a quote that just hit. you know, and I had to pause the episode, and I was like, wow, those are bars. Like, I don't know if you are like, if you listen to music and you're like, yo, like, let me pause, like, run that back. That's literally what I did, jamming to, like, Criminal Minds. I paused it, and I wrote a rant. And eventually it turned into a poem. And I'm gonna read the quote first, and then I'm gonna read the poem. And then I'm gonna explain the slashes, if that's okay. It's called Dragon. And the quote is, "Fairy tales do not tell children that the dragons exist. Children already know dragons exist. Fairy tales tell the children that the dragons can be killed." G.K. Chesterton. We build bunk beds out of couches, stack cousins on brothers on nieces. Leather from the couch's seats forces your cheek to be smooth. It is a lullaby. Massaging faces and ears drowns out stampedes of search parties looking for your mother under the nearest crack rock. There is a vein on your ankle that puffs its chest out for attention. We all have one. Royal blue hidden entryways elevate our fathers' thrones even higher, parading the insides of our elbows during family reunions. No need for long sleeves. Admire the crevices between our toes. Play games with us. Hide and seek with track marks. Hot potato with relatives' couches that'll force your cheeks smooth. We welcomed cloaked addiction. It's the thread that sews us together. Without it, we'd be separated, exposed, strung out. Monster, I know where you hide. Syringes give you neck cramps. Instead, spread your wings over well-groomed adults and silent children littered with blisters from mopping their mother's face prints off the floor. Why do you need your metal spoon so much? This is family dinner time. Put up photos over the reminders. Bedtime stories for the couch. Long tales rock you to sleep. I'm sorry, you believe us. Practice fairy tales about killing dragons, winged narratives, circling exactly how she died. Thank you. So we're gonna break down this poem, I'm always joking, right, about trauma. That should not be. But we're gonna dip real slow because this is a sad poem, and then we're gonna push back up because I got like 2 more happy poems for you. I wanted to talk about this poem because if you're not familiar with poetry, you're like, girl, what are those slashes? Like, we get it. Like, is this a date? Like, 4 slash, But for me, it's a beat. So sometimes I read it like the slashes aren't there. And then sometimes I'll pause. But if you look at each frame, can you hear me? When you look at each frame, it's supposed to be a pause. So, monster, I'll start right there. Monster, I know where you hide. Syringes give you neck cramps. Instead, spread your wings over well-groomed adults and silent children littered with blisters. And so what those dashes really do, and in the other poem too that I shared, we can get into how visual poetry just really excites me, but it also provides a breadcrumb, like a Hansel and Gretel thing. Like, I want that to really nail in, right? So if I'm like saying a bar or a poem, like, I want it to punch you, right? I want you to pause, and I want you to separate thinking about the well-groomed adult versus the silent child holding a broom after they just cleaned up after a binge, And so that's essentially how I write. I write a rant. If I'm inspired, I write a rant, then I play around with it visually, and then it becomes a poem. And that poem is very dear to me, as you can tell, because I'm kind of shaking. All right, we're gonna jump back up a little bit, but thanks for letting me break down one of my favorite pieces. It's the oldest piece in the book, actually. And now, where's it at? Boom, boom, boom. We're gonna talk about form. We're gonna stay with form, if that's okay. Here it is. And then I'm gonna actually move back closer to you all. Okay, all right. So I got 2 more for you, or 3 more, but it's 2 are related, and then 1 is like the absent cousin. So unfortunately, I don't have them on, but I love long nails. I am that clickety-clackety, clackety-clickety person. Oh, thank you so much. I think that decorating my hand, like I have no rings on, and I feel like my little nubs are naked right now. Like, I like being over the top. Obviously, right, I literally have blonde eyebrows, right? So I put chemicals on my eyebrows, like, to change the colors, and I change my hair and all of that. But I think that I wrote this poem in a workshop about vices, right? Because if anybody has ever had those long acrylics, or even if they're just short, the fake nails, anybody know what I'm talking about? Them fake nails, they're not easy to manage. They're all for show, but they're not really for efficiency. And, they say beauty is pain. They say, like all of that. But it became this thing where I was like, you struggle to button a shirt, or, opening a pop can, and these little things. And my friend led a workshop on vices, and she was talking about like how we have a lot of things that don't serve us, but we like how it looks, so we keep them up. And so I wrote 2 poems. The first poem is just about the way nails will change your whole mood. Getting your nails will change your whole mood, but then you are faced with more obstacles. So this is what this poem is about. It's called Even My Nails Hurt Me. My nails fall in love with everything but my hands. They commit to slam doors and cracks in the couch, quietly rip themselves from my fingers while my blood makes the sound. I try to keep my nails on my fingers with super glue and enlist keys to pry open pop cans. Change the shape my nails naturally grow into, I am their sun. Shave the sides of their head, I am their shadow. Still, they want out, even when I tend to their needs before mine. I dress my nails in glitter without asking and paint them the color I deserve to feel. No costume can make them belong to me, and I hope they'd miss me. Instead, they giggle under dust piles with my skin attached to their backs. Mauled plastic chunks hiding in corners of my apartment, thrilled to be free. That was that, thank you. Thank you. And if you're like, girl, it's literally just a fingernail, like, bro, wait till you hear this one. Someone in the last period asked me what inspires me, and I talked about my dog, and I talked about anything, and literally in this moment, as you can tell, I was looking at my fingernails, and I was like, these are poetic, like, not just because the nail lady snapped with the design, right? Like, not just because I look great, but like this sense of me literally handing pop cans to my boyfriend so he can open it so I could stay fly. It's just wild to me. And so I took it a step further. I'm like, wow, I'm like, that's great. I took it a step further, and it's called a persona poem. A persona poem is when you just like jump in the shoes of an object that, I feel like, what do I say, personification? Is that the word, English teachers? Thank you. This is from the broken fingernail. And so what I originally did was I wrote a sestina, which is a form where you use the same 6 words, and then it's like a Spider-Man poem is what I like to call, where you have to fill in each line and it has to like make sense. And then I took that sestina and I meshed it, but I wrote from the perspective of a broken fingernail because I literally broke my fingernail and I was all devastated because I couldn't be my fly girl baddie self. And then I was kind of like, how does the fingernail feel? And that was really my thought process. And here we go. From the broken fingernail. It must be nice to always be part of the family and to never question if your presence is welcome. I am a rotating disappointment, a peaceful tune until the record scrape, trying to make you see the beauty in the jagged, the rich dirt as gold. Dare I compare myself to gold? I don't have anyone who wants to claim me as family. No one is praised for being jagged. Even the sword is smooth on its sides and still welcome, despite the cut, despite the scrape. Why would I get used to being a disappointment? Snatch a layer of gel over myself to hide the scrape. And when I'm perfect again, I will be accepted by my family. Only beings that look the same on these hands can be welcome. Shine me until I'm sparkling gold. Mold my parts and create a family. And finally, I can have results from the scrape. Rub myself against the hand so she too can feel the jagged. Wonder if the pain is always worth the family. And what happens if you can't reshape disappointment? Throw acetone on what pretends to be gold and watch the beauty burn away with the welcome. And after the appointment, she always shows off what is no longer jagged, effortless hand motions, cutting through disappointment. If her hand waves fast enough in the blur, we all might look like family. Thank you. I have one more, and I wish I read that poem for whoever asked me what inspires me. Actually, I think that was you. Yeah, you read. Never mind. Now that I put two and two together. Because little moments like that really do inspire me. Like, again, we're watching Criminal Intent for the intent of watching Spencer Reed, or, breaking a fingernail. A lot of things inspire me. Like, the world really inspires me. Actually, you know what? I think I want to, here, I'll read it. So the book ends on, I'm going to read the last poem in the book. The book is a roller coaster of ups and downs, as you see. We were down a little bit, talking about different things in my childhood. We were up, talking about, my life and how I feel like I'm growing out of a lot of things. But I grew up in the church, and there is a literal scripture in Genesis that celebrates the name Rachel. And my mom named me Rachel because, she rocked with Christ. You know what I'm saying? And he rocked with us. All right. It's Genesis 29:17. It says, Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. And when I tell you, I was sitting in that church like, she was what? Rachel was, read that again, read. I don't know, it's a thing they do in my church where they say read, and then the reader will read it again. So I'm gonna read it again, and then I'm gonna read the poem, and then I got some A's for your Q's. All right, Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. Even the Bible knows I'm fine. Look it up for yourself. The story is the same in all versions. I'm a hit. Jacob worked for 14 years for Rachel, so I know Shorty was a head turner. Might have to peruse the good book more often. I'm done sitting through sermons that remind me I'll burn soon. Never quick enough. Today, the word, TM, shouts me out. Finally, an affirmation crawling under the attacks. I hear your message loud and clear, God. I am a dime. That is indeed top of the line. Your prophet wrote, I am beautiful. I am even well-favored. Is her name pronounced Leah or Leah? I don't remember. The first half of the scripture is honestly boring, but the second half is a masterpiece. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much. Before I'll get some questions going, if it could be super deep about my poetry, my voice acting, but I have a question for you all is that, y'all, I'm tasking you. I'm 30 now. I don't know what everybody's listening to, so you feel free to put me on some music. If you're like, hey, I'm listening to this, and I think you should listen to that, that is also welcome. But let's get some poetry questions in first. All right, yeah. Any questions? Oh, perfect. Yes. I am, they're cherubs, right? But they're little black girl cherubs, and they're their hair is specifically braids and puffs. I wanted something that symbolized a lot about what the book was going to be about. It's going to be about a black girl figuring out her religion. And so I'll answer your question with a question, or with the statement of what made me not choose. There was an image that they really were trying to push of a girl walking into a church, but it was black and white, and it was mad boring. And so whatever project or whatever art lane, you want something that catches the eye. And so one, this color is my favorite color. Two, I wanted something bright and bold. So if you're walking on the shelf, if you didn't hear about Raych Jackson, that's fine. But if you're looking, if we put this against a black and white church cover, you're gonna, your eyes are gonna gravitate to that. That's a great question. So I chose that. We worked with the cherubs, but then I chose the background specifically because of the color being poof. Thanks. We didn't get that last time. That was new. Yes. Sure. I can tell you a little bit more. The question was, can I tell you a little bit more about my voice acting? Someone actually asked this, and I'm gonna give a similar answer. Someone asked how I got into voice acting. And the way I got into voice acting was honestly friendship. So my first thing I've ever voiced was the Jackbox video game, Mad vs. City. I played DJ Raych. Like, literally, my name is in the video game. If you're ever like, oh, that's her, that's Raych. That's again, right? We talked about throwing that Y in there. Anyway, my friend from college animated on the team, and they were like, yo, we need somebody that's like not boring. And he actually pitched me. So I talked about like really holding on to close to networking and friendships and that sort of thing. So I won't ever pretend like Jackbox just saw my work and called me up. I had a friend in the room that was already working. And from there, I took that and I added that to my media kit. Oh my God, I could talk about this forever. Sorry, I love media kits, pitching and all of that. Then I added that experience. And then I was able to like push myself in a lot of places. But truthfully, the way I got into voice acting is because I had a friend in the room already. Any other questions? Yes.
How old were you when you wrote your first poem?
I want to say 10 or 11. No, that's not true. What grade are you in 6th grade? 12? 12, yeah, I was 12. And then the reason I know it was 6th grade is because my 6th grade teacher, teachers don't get enough credit, I was not the best student, and she found my poetry book, and she literally put, I want to say like time aside during her language arts class so I could read my poems to the class. So I was writing poems around I was 10 or 11, but I'll say the first time I really performed it was in 6th grade. And like at that point, I was in middle school, I stank, like, I don't know, like, I was going through puberty, but like, I don't know, teachers don't get enough credit. So she literally took aside of her lesson to give me a stage. So yeah, she's great. Shout out Miss O'Connell. She's really held me down. Yes?
What's your process for writing a poem? Like, how do you start?
It's great. Great question. So I mean it when I say it in rants or poems. If something inspires me, I'll good old notes app, or I'll write something down. And I'll need to be in a quiet place, but not because I'm quiet. So I'll write a sentence, and then I'll read that sentence aloud, and then I'll like start talking about it. And then if something else sounds good, I'll write it down, if that makes sense. So I'm very much a write and talk writer. So we'll get one sentence, and then I'll read it over and over again, and then I might get the second and third sentence. Then I'll go back, pull out some words. It's a loud process, honestly. Shout out to whoever can write quietly, though. That's talent. Yes?
Do you finish them all, or do you have a pile of just unfinished stuff?
My mentor says this perfectly. There are no finished poems, just abandoned ones. So I could revisit any poem and add to it. I just, I find a pause. I don't think my poems ever end. I think that they kind of just stop, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Can I piggyback off that?
Yes?
I'm always wondering if artists, once it's published, are just bugged by something that they wish they could, like, go back and...
I wish I added, I was going to be a little messy. Well, I'll say it. I have a love poem in here for someone that I'm not with anymore. And I'm kind of like, why did I do that? But it's fire. Like, I wrote that poem, and I was in love at the time. So I don't want to pull the poem. I would probably pull his name. But for this book specifically, I like everything I did with it. I just wish I didn't write his name in the poem. If you ever write a love poem, just don't write the name. Like, until you get a ring on it, you know what I'm saying? But as far as, like, other projects I have, I learn and grow, like even with the aspect of like this period versus last period where you and I talked, where I was like, I'm actually not gonna read that poem. It didn't hit. Like, I'm gonna skip that poem. So like, I think I'm always growing on what I've written or what I've performed before. That was great, thank you. No one has ever told me, no one, yes. Is there a hand in the back? Let me go back and then close to the front. Yeah, that's my childhood friend, yeah. We're from Chicago. Did you look me up on Instagram? That's great. I'm glad I didn't post nothing crazy. Like, I don't post anything crazy. You might see me in lashes, though. I got bald eyelids right now. Yes. That's yeah. I couldn't hear you. I hope so. Just kidding. I don't rap. I don't have rhythm. I don't rap. Anyone else in this front part? Yes. Yes, you. I'm sorry. I faked you out that last time, but I promise you it's your turn now.
So you said you had a hard time or like a difficult time coming up with the names, the titles of your poems. Like, did you come up with a name like after your
when we're talking about marketing, my book was actually just going to be called Audition. But again, if I wrote a book called Audition and you were all trying to search my book, would it come up? And so, this poem, the book follows a couple of saints in the Bible, and I kind of like really molded around where I was like, well, it was not even the saints audition. It was audition, and then it was saints auditioning, and then I sent my work out to my friends, and my friends helped me name my book. So if you all have like a tight-knit crew, like people that you grow up with, if we're talking about Chance the Rapper, we're talking about Save Money, like Pivot Gang, like how they have friends that they bounce ideas off of. My friends and I came up with the title, we settled on Even the Saints Audition. Oh, that was great. Thank you all.